we are.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Curriculum Committee of the Board meeting for Monday, November the 11th. Before we officially begin, just want to take a moment to acknowledge that it's Veterans Day and say thank you to our veterans for their service of our country and for all of their dedication to the United States of America. So thank you to our veterans.
A huge shout out to all the programs that went on across the district on Friday and again today. I got to go to one of them and it was fabulous. So
Great.
Our kids did a great job.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, is there any public comment on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to pass it over to Mrs. Krugaitis.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Marino. Good evening, board, and anybody else who's listening out. Video. On our agenda this evening, we will be talking about Plymouth White Marsh High School course proposals for the school year of 2025-2026. We will have an introduction to AI in the Colonial School District, which is artificial intelligence. We have two policies for your consideration this evening, as well as two conference requests. We are going to start with our PW course proposals. And the first proposal we're going to go over is an AP Pre-Calculus course, and Mr. Merck is going to explain a little bit more about that.
All right. Good evening. As Mrs. Krugaitis said, we are proposing that we bring on the course of AP Pre-Calculus. If you look at the course description there, it's comparable to many descriptions you would see for this type of course. Includes all the content you would need as a prerequisite for calculus. We've recommended this occurs in 11th grade. And one important bullet there is the supported research, which says that AP College Board reports that every student that is ready for high school pre-calculus should be prepared for AP pre-calculus. This is eligible for college credit as determined by each college individually, of course. The pathway that we're looking at here is for students who are intended to go to college-bound students interested in taking this course. The prerequisites. What you see in red is the pathway students used to take to get to a calculus or honors calculus course. And so with pre-calculus, it kind of takes two courses and puts it into one. So you can see for the calculus or honors calculus track, students would take AP Pre-Calculus instead of taking Integrated Math 5 or Honors Pre-Calculus or regular Pre-Calculus. We're targeting students coming out of Integrated Math 4. So students, when they, that would be the last math course they take in 10th grade. So when they enter 11th grade, they would, if they request it, can take the AP Pre-Calculus. It's a full year course, 2 credits. It would be 1 core credit, 1 elective credit. And this would require some new sequencing that we would talk with the counselors and include in our course catalog. Estimated cost, we will look for resources and require text. At this moment, we do not have an estimated cost for that. And then training for staff, we're looking at about $1,200. Any questions regarding the AP Pre-Calculus course?
Sort of. So they would have to take integrated math 4, but then pre-calc would be integrated 5 and pre-calc is 1, you said?
Yes.
Okay. Integrated math 4, they finish in 10th grade?
Yes, second semester.
So then if they do this in 11th grade, is the expectation or the thought that they would then go on to AP Calc AB or A or?
So we thought about the students taking 2 years of AP mathematics, and one of the reasons why we are proposing this course is to give students opportunity to an AP math class that normally wouldn't take an AP math class, because aspiring to an AP Calc, AB or BC or AP statistics, that might be something they weren't interested in, but they said, students could say, okay, what about an AP Pre-Calculus? While we'll strive for all students to get to the
I just,
AB, BC, and
Right.
AP Stat. This would give another option for those students who were not interested in taking those courses in 12th grade.
okay, and then looking on the college side of it, what course would that kind of equate to at a college level that they would get credit for?
Introductory college, prerequisite to college calculus.
Okay.
Is there any implication for staffing for us?
No,
Did everything stay status quo?
yes. Well, we're imagining the students that would normally take the integrated 5 pre-calculus or honors pre-calculus pathway, they would go into this pathway instead.
Do we have any other local school districts who are already doing this that we could look at their data, like Easton, Springfield, and those things?
In the area, we have.
There's a handful, Radnor being one of them. We have a list.
Yes, we have a
Springford
list.
in a second. Because last year was his first year that we offered, but we can certainly talk to our colleagues.
Okay. And, sorry, second question. Were students involved in this? Did students advocate for this, or this is mostly from staff, or both, or?
This one predominantly from staff.
Okay.
I think always hearing our students looking for more options, especially students that typically don't have access to rigorous course offerings,
Sure.
would answer that type question. And this definitely fits the mold after integrated 4 for students potentially would not take a college level AP course, and that's what it's slated for. So,
Thank you.
How many students are you hoping to have in the first year register for this course?
So looking at the data of students who normally came out of integrated 4, we're looking forward to 2 sections to start off with.
So
And for it to grow
40 to
from there.
50 kids?
40, 50 with 2 sections.
high side, yeah, I would say, yes.
Okay. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of my kids that went through college and when they went through the math and the AP, kind of like how they fit into the different colleges that accepted the credit. So I'm trying to figure out where the AP pre-calc would fit in to credit and what the kids who were taking that were majoring in to see if it really would match to be like a savings for them, like give them a leg up, or if it's just, I took an AP course kind of thing, right? I mean, I'm not trying to belittle anything,
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I
I
just
think it would
trying to
be
figure out
both.
how it fits.
I think students, they know what colleges want, and, especially when they get into 11th grade, they're really trying to take as much coursework that's going to look great on their transcripts. And this would be one of those courses for them.
Which just leads me to one other question. So when we do the whole like college counseling, kids are in 11th grade, they're choosing, right? So is there anywhere along the line of conversation before they register for any AP courses that, hey, I want to go into XYZ major, I'm thinking about ABC school, what's the best match for me to take, if I only have so many 5 blocks, right, and I have to fit whatever, what's going to give me the best bang for my buck and a leg up academically? Is there a conversation like that? Is that conversation having to be student-driven, or is it more it's an automatic, your counselor's going to have this conversation with you, but before they sign up for 100 different AP courses because they just like, do you know what I'm
It's an
saying?
excellent
Feel
point,
like-
Chris. One of the things that we talked about with this course, as well as the other 2 that you're going to hear about this evening, is how important it is for our counselors to be well-versed on these new courses and how to work with our students to get them into the right courses that's going to be most beneficial for them. So
Okay.
yes, the counselors will have a meeting about all of these courses once they're approved, and then how we can talk to our students and what's going to benefit the most.
Because we have so many now,
Yeah.
like back when my oldest went through, there was maybe a dozen AP courses that you could take. Now there's so many that I think, parents get excited, oh yeah, he's taking AP, and the kids get excited, I'm taking, but they don't necessarily connect like, hey, what do I really want And is it really going to help me? Because some of my kids found out that even though they took AP courses, that they went to this school and this major, and you know what? They didn't accept any of those. But if they had switched them up to take this, this, and this, they could have had 12 more college credits by the time they got there. So it kind of is a conversation that needs to be thought about, and then it needs to be had early enough, even though the kids may not know what they want to do in 9th to 10th grade. I think some of the parents might need to understand too that just because you're taking an AP doesn't automatically equate, even getting a 5, equate to them giving you college credit, right? And ultimately, from a parent's perspective, that's really your goal, right? Is to get your kid either ahead in college or being able to graduate early and not spend that $50,000 for 2 weeks of college that it is anymore these days. You see where I'm going with that? So I just want to, as we add more courses, which I think is fantastic and it's vigorous, it's great that we offer them, that we sort of on the back end of it make sure that the kids are making the most sort of practical decisions with how to spend their credits, if that makes any sense.
So we'll add that. I know with our counselors, we have 5 people to name in my search, in my drive. Every student has a 4-year plan coming in freshman year. Then all of our counselors meet with each freshman during their 9th grade year. And we offer the sophomore spotlight meetings. It's a great opportunity to do that with the families as well as the students. So we can definitely include that.
That's what I was going to say. Those sophomore spotlights, like with meeting with the families, I think is like a good time for parents to ask those questions.
And sometimes, I guess I'm saying, sometimes parents don't know what questions to ask because they haven't been through it. That's where I'm trying to.
Yeah, the counselors, I felt like, at least going through it last year, did a pretty good job of like laying everything out in different pathways.
Yeah, because they're really, so like some sort of framework that even could be provided on a simple slide or something like that for those who won't be there, because there really is at least 2 dimensions to it. One is what Chris is talking about in terms of will this transfer to a credit, right? But the other piece of it is exactly what you said. It's, well, the first goal is actually to get into the school you want to get into, right? And that's where a more rigorous coursework, regardless of what you might score on the exam, right? And so they might not be thinking of it in those ways. And that's, in my experience as a parent, having gone through it one time, is the sequence of events that they should really think. It's not just about whether or not you can bypass a course in school and then open up an opportunity to take another course. It doesn't really save a whole lot of money. That's the other thing, because you're there for 12 or 15 credits. It's a full-time course load. And so if you only take the course off, you're still paying for a semester, a year, and it's based on tuition, not based on the number of credits, right? Unless you go part-time. If you have 7 AP classes that transfer, that's very different, right? I don't even know if that's possible. But so they should, like, to step through that for them, to not have to go through it in order to recognize you're talking about, right, how attractive you are as a student to get into the course you want to get to, the possibility of freeing up credit hours that then you could either take a lesser load or pursue, if it does transfer in, a minor or a second major, et cetera, right? Or it doesn't transfer at all, but again, it helps you get a leg up in terms of, admission, et cetera. So I think providing that sort of mental framework for parents that haven't thought about it, and even though we spent a lot of time thinking about it, until it actually happened, we weren't thinking about it quite the right way.
I hear you there. Which is by the time the 5th one went through, we're like, okay, we have a pretty good idea right now.
Now I get it.
And then they change everything, right? So, whatever. So.
And we can make sure that we bring up all those excellent points to our counselors. Mrs. Burke meets with them, and we'll get a jump on that college planning now so that we have your thoughts and the frameworks in mind.
And one other question, I'm sorry, with that,
No.
I don't want to hijack the whole meeting. So with that, and you have so many more kids coming into the high school, right? And you have now so many more kids taking AP, more thinking about college. Are we looking ahead at bolstering the college counseling department to be able to handle those and be proactive and not necessarily trying to play catch up? Oh my gosh, I still have 30 kids I have to see and I only have 2 weeks left, kind of thing. Like, I would hate to burden them with all this other, the deluge that they may see 2 years from now, 3 years from now.
And we have, as you know, increased the counseling department at DW over the years, and we will continue to work with them. Melissa has a new partnership with our college counselors as well. So I think between Mrs. Burke and Melissa, we'll be able to bolster away. Yeah.
There's also a page in our site, high school career pathways, and if you go to the different careers, they list the courses on there that we offer that would help lead towards that pathway.
Right, and again, the conversation really is about trade-offs, right? It's like potentially sacrifice my GPA versus, right? So there's a number of factors, and it's just really hard for parents to really sort of take all of that into consideration and figure out what's best. They don't necessarily see it as a trade-off. They see it as like as many advanced, as AP classes as I can, or credits that might transfer in, or whatever the case is. And it's like GPA first, getting into school second, or they're one and the same. And so considering those trade-offs, I think, are really important.
Any other questions? All right. Then the next one on the agenda is ELD Horizons, and Mr. Paccetti is going to share that.
Thank you, Mrs. Brigetta. So one of the two courses that I'll be discussing this evening is ELD Horizons. First, before I begin, I would like to give a special thank you to Rebecca Hepler, who was our ELD teacher at the high school, for being an advocate for her students and then seeing the need for such a course. So to briefly go over what this course is designed for and for whom it serves, these would be students who are, on the course brief says, in between a 2 and a 3 on the WIDA scale. Basically, these are students who are ready for additional support in areas basic conversational English as well as some academic writing. So currently we already do have an existing course for our Ls in our high school. That course is a foundations course. So anybody who happens to be an L or coded as an L in our district will go into that course. This would be a second tier, so to speak, of that same class with an extension with more specific differentiated content for those learners who are prepared for that. One of the reasons that this course was proposed was to ensure that, one, we are keeping our numbers down in our classes to make sure that we can differentiate appropriately for those learners. So this course would be taught kind of in sequence on alternating days with the existing course that we have on the docket. There are 3 primary goals for this particular course: developing academic writing at a multi-paragraph level with organization, structure, transitions, and grammar beyond simple sentences; developing speaking at the conversational and academic level that includes multi-sentence responses beyond yes or no or simple words and phrases; and developing interpretive skills in both listening and reading from the comprehension of short, familiar conversations and passages, and then bridging those into longer passages. So these are all consistent with the guidelines that we have through WIDA, which is the governing kind of body and testing organization that we utilize to ensure that students are meeting all of those linguistic competencies. There is no staffing impact for this. Mrs. Hepler would be teaching this course as well, again, on those alternating days. And in terms of resources, we already have a lot of the existing resources, so right now we're not proposing any additional cost to this. The impact of student schedules would mean that students have more expanded opportunities to take courses like electives that they may be interested in, or additionally, if it fits into their schedule, some academic level English classes.
I have a question. I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, what has been the traditional practice then? So if our Ls who are between 2.0, 3.0, and WIDA are now moving into this space, what has been the practice for those friends before?
Excellent question. So currently, we have all the students in the only existing course that we have. So that's the Foundations course. So as you can imagine, right now we have 26, and Dr. Pahani may want to check me on that exact number. I believe it is 26 that we currently have enrolled in that class. And that range of learners in terms of where they are falling on that WIDA scale does make it challenging for one teacher to differentiate meaningfully for those students. So that is typically the standard of practice.
So if we're thinking about grades 9 through 12 and alternating days, how does that impact scheduling for the students? I'm just kind of curious how that works.
So really all we're taking is, the way to kind of conceive of it is instead of the foundation course, it's just
got it. Okay, they're already there. Got it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Last course again, Mr. Paccetti, Spanish for Spanish speakers.
Thank you for saving all your questions for Mr. Murphy. The Spanish for Spanish speakers course will be hosted by the World Languages Department. And again, much like the last course, I would like to give special recognition to both Katie Gear and Dr. Rich Meadle, who have put this initial very comprehensive proposal together. So I would like to give just a brief digest of what the course is designed for whom it is designed for. Currently, we do have a number of students who speak Spanish both at home as a heritage language as well as a second language that they do have in the household. A couple of years ago, this course was proposed, and we had established at that point in time it wasn't the correct fit for the students that we happen to have, because we do have an emerging population of learners that have Spanish spoken at home in some capacity. We wanted to find a place for them based on a number of different items. So this course would be aligned to some of the AP curriculum that folks would be familiar with if they're taking the AP Spanish language course. Obviously, there would be modifications to that content in terms of both the rigor and what they're being exposed to in terms of academic content. But the whole goal of this is to prepare them for personal, professional, and academic opportunities, including advanced Spanish courses and the Seal of Biliteracy, which we are proud to offer as a district. So students who do speak another language are eligible for that seal. The intended population for students here is general level academic. So really it can run the gamut between advanced learners in that particular language as well as academic level. Course prerequisites that we're proposing here: 9th through 12th graders, so it is open to any student in the high school that have a code 4260, which basically means Spanish is their primary language at home. Self-identification, teacher and or counselor recommendation. So we have a number of different pathways for identifying potential candidates for this course. We are also recommending in conjunction with that a placement assessment consisting of an oral interview conducted by a Spanish teacher in the department. We're still currently developing what that would look like, and that is kind of a movable target, but we are taking the APPL tests, which are the language proficiency tests, and adapting some of the content for those, just to get a sense of how the student works in that type of environment. The Spanish for Spanish speakers course generally, in terms of how the course would be delivered with content, it is a tiered approach, so you could take this course for multiple years. The goal of that, and it would consistently count as a credit in world language, the goal of that is to help differentiate on a cycle, year to year, what types of content is delivered. There would be no staffing implications or impact. We have enough teachers who are remarkably highly qualified to teach this course and be able to help adjust as we go through curriculum writing as a process. Right now, in terms of resources, we are exploring a couple of different options. We have a lot of these in-house already. The goal of the department and the vision that we have for it at the high school is to ensure that we're tailoring that in a more personalized way to learners, so it would not be a canned, so to speak, curriculum. It would be responsive to the needs of the students that we have in front of us. Any questions?
What's the total population that are potentially, would be eligible for this course? Round number, I mean, not.
For the students that are currently identified, so we'd be looking at current 8th graders all the way through 11th. We have 22 students who have Spanish as their primary language, and that's not to include the litany of students that we have who speak the language at home, but may not have been identified based on our state reporting.
I really like the community piece that's involved here. I think that's great.
Again, thank you for reserving your questions too.
And feel free, if you have any other questions, you can email them at a later time. Now, without further ado, we go on to artificial intelligence, which has been a very hot topic in our school district, and we are getting with the times. So we have started with a steering committee, and these two fine people, Mrs. Becky Duffy and Mr. Jock Rothstein, are going to introduce themselves and explain the path that we have been taking.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna stand. Well, we do that all day long, so this feels a little bit more natural. Hi, everyone. How's everybody tonight? Good, good. Happy Veterans Day. So before we get started, we always like to tell a little bit about ourselves. So these are our people. So I'm over here. It's a picture of my family. My husband, Vince, is a 7th grade science teacher in the Chichester School District. And those two little guys, Ryan and Jack. Ryan is a 6th grader this year, and Jack's in 4th grade. I was just telling a few people, I just got announced St. Jen's JV head basketball coach as of yesterday. So very excited. Thank you. So I'll be doing a lot of that. And my little buddy Jack is into theater and he loves the arts and he would love this classroom.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Rothstein. I've been here in Colonial since 2014, 2015. I've been at the middle school now. It's my 9th year at the middle school teaching 8th grade English. Those are, as Becky says, her people. Those are my people. My wife is an academic counselor for higher education, and my kids are in 4th grade, 1st grade, and I have a 1.5-year-old. So it's a lot of running around on different levels.
So you can see, not only are we passionate about AI right now because we're educators, but we have little people that are coming up in this very crazy world that we are dealing with technology and how quickly it's moving. So to get us started thinking about this, there's a quote from Darwin, and I'll go ahead and read it for you. Sorry for my back, Jess. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one responsive to change. So just take a minute, turn and talk to the people next to you. How do you think this relates to AI? Just have a minute, turn and talk. What do you think? All right, how's everybody feeling? Anybody want to share out your thinking, or maybe somebody else's thinking? Any brave? What'd you think?
Karen Burke said she refuses.
I was going to say, I know, it's a little bit scary, right? It's daunting, it's scary, it creates a lot of emotion, right?
It's exciting.
It's exciting for sure. There's a lot to it. But the specific thing here is this idea of change. And we get so caught up sometimes in this idea that things have to stay the same because this is how we did them. And I'm reminded of a story from Mr. Steve Wills. I don't know if anybody's been around long enough to remember him. He was an English teacher in Colonial 20 years ago, because I remember the date because I was a brand new teacher. And we were sitting at a PD session, and he pulled up this thing called Google. And he was like, I'm going to show everybody how this works. And I distinctly remember this, especially the older teachers, who I would be now if I was in a session like I am with AI, just feeling totally like, this is ridiculous. What are we even teaching the kids now? Because all they can do is just Google it. Like, they can just find the answers, because we were teaching content. We were teaching knowledge. We had to vastly change everything about the way we approached education. And we had to start thinking about skills. We had to start thinking about transversal skills. We had to start thinking about processes, creative thinking, critical thinking, and no longer just knowledge. And we're here at the same exact spot. So we've done it, and we've done it before, and it's okay to have the feels and feel anxious and overwhelmed, but we have to adapt. And the reason we need to do this is because AI is rapidly changing our world, rapidly, like super, super quickly. And our kids need to be prepared for that. So as teachers, educators, leaders, we need to make sure that we're doing that to get them ready for the future.
There you go. Thanks. Yeah, Becky's like jazzed about this. I love this too. Doing so much work on this. I think in this presentation, the steering committee, we've gotten together and thought, like, what is the best approach to put this in front of you all so that you understand what our thinking is and the vision and how it sort of aligns with our goals here in the district. And I think through this quick presentation, we want to at least define, explain, and then note the urgency of what AI is, just as a base level. And then also talk about, like, our beliefs, like what are our beliefs not only as educators, but as a sort of committee here with AI in the Colonial School District. And the last thing we want to talk about is this continuum of AI usage for education and sort of what our vision and plan looks like sort of moving forward, because we'd like to lean into this. And I think it is scary, but I think it's important that we do that. So just so everyone has a base knowledge of what this is, we wanted to include this in the presentation, that artificial intelligence as a definition and how we use it is this idea that it is technology designed to mimic human intelligence. Okay, so it's mimicking human intelligence, such as analyzing the data, recognizing patterns, making decisions, and essentially it's using data sets to mimic what we do as human beings. Now, in the past year and a half, since probably December 2022, when ChatGPT came on the scene, and we saw this explosion in generative AI and generative artificial intelligence, which is slightly different, because what that does is that's a subset of AI. And what that's going to do is that's going to be generating new content from learned data. Whatever the data has been fed into the system, it can then generate new original content, which as teachers, I think sometimes is sort of scary for us to think about. And that can recognize patterns, and then it can create text, code, images, audio, and video data. How many of you in this room have used ChatGPT or any kind of generative AI? Got it. Okay, so it's a big show of hands. So I'm going to turn it over to Becky because I'm going to turn it over to
Because you're just going to turn it over.
I'm gonna turn it over to Becky.
So, you know, as good educators, we know that sometimes it's great to say things, but you really have to show. So in order to do that, we're going to do a little quick activity. So I encourage everyone to participate. There are index cards around the tables, as well as anybody needs pens. So I brought my
She's right.
pack of pens if anybody needs one. Pass those around. So here's the game. This is how we're going to play. So we talked about how Google, right, 20 years ago, it was this thing that came out and it was so revolutionary and so overwhelming. So we're going to basically kind of mimic that same idea. So this is called, Can You Predict Google? Okay, so this is a little game. There are prizes. So if you're competitive, this is the time to get ready, okay? And what we're going to do is basically I'm going to give you a STEM. And then we are going to plug it into Google. And we are going to get, as Google does, so to start generating what it thinks, you're asking it, right? So here is your challenge. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds for each STEM, and you're going to write down as many as you can think of STEM endings that you think Google will populate. So for example, if I said, what are the 10 best ways to, you have to write down how you think that will finish. Okay? So here's how the point system works. If you can guess the very first answer, you get 10 points. If you go all the way to the bottom and guess the last answer, you get 1 point. And then everything in between. Everybody got it? You get 0 points.
Yeah.
But we're not going to, I'm telling you, this is tricky. Everybody understand the game? Okay, so can we go to a Google site? And the first one, are you ready? Here it is. The first one is, what happens if you ... So as many ideas as you can come up with in 30 seconds.
I'm timing.
What happens if you...
20 seconds. What happens if you... Right on that 30 seconds.
Okay, 5 more seconds. All right, who's feeling confident? They know Google? No. All right, go ahead and type it in. What happens if you... Good job, because it's very stressful to type when everyone's watching you, so well done. Swallow gum?
Your tooth.
Drink too much water, eat too much protein, fail a class in college, don't go to jury duty, don't vote, break a lease, miss jury duty, or eat mold. Anyone? No. I think
It's a massive cookie.
Drop your baby.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
What did you say?
Drop your baby.
Oh my God.
That's Kelly.
I was kind of almost forgot to mail in your ballot.
That we'll give credit there. We got to give credit somewhere, right? So that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I should say 1, 2, 3, 4. You get 4 points. All right, everybody got the hang of it? We'll do 1 or 2 more, just because it's fun. All right, how about the next one? What is the best way to? What is the best way to?
We're all very engaged students right now. Thank you.
Well played.
Yeah.
Especially for Monday night.
About 5 more seconds. Get as many as you can. All right. And we'll type it in. What is the best way to communicate with the fish? Anyone? Yes. Okay. How about to study, to learn Spanish, to invest money, to learn a language, to lose belly fat, to sleep, to make money, to lose weight? Anyone? You got one? What'd you get? Please tell me it was communicate with fish.
I got make money.
Make money would be,
Well,
you would get a 9.
There's make money and there's
That's
another one.
Invest money. We can split the difference. I think we'll give you a 5.
All right.
Sounds great.
I
Anyone
got- I'm
else?
gonna take credit for one more, but I'm gonna.
Lose weight.
Lose weight is 1. 1 point for lose weight.
I got 9 for money.
And you got 9 for money. No, this is 2. 2. Somebody keep an eye on him. All right. All right, one more. Any others? Any others? All right, keep tabs of how many points you have, because like I said, there's probably, last one. Where is the best place to? Where is the best place to? And then try to write down something. Are you getting it? I didn't get any when I did this. None. I didn't get it. The second question. Yeah, because it's your. About 5 more seconds. All right, shall we put it in? Where is the best place to live? See the Northern Lights? Yes. Get superhuman. Vote. Get God-human. Live in the world. Get a birth certificate. Awaken your fruit. And roll in the third state.
Roll in the what?
I don't even know what that means.
What is it?
Roll in the third C. I don't even know what that means.
Karen, you know what that means.
I cannot change it, so I
You should probably filter this by above the age of 40.
So,
I'm saying.
to the point, to your point, that's an excellent point. It would draw on the algorithms of whoever's is doing this. But I think we found out this was sort of like an incognito one. So, did anyone get anything here?
Yes, Northern Lights.
Northern
I
Lights.
did get it the last time too, so it's fine.
You were kind of cheating, but not really.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Get your points. Make sure you get that's
I wasn't sure.
9 points.
Big one.
Anybody else?
Candy.
Points?
That's candy worthy.
All right. Go on vacation? Did we have that? That came up the last time we did it. It did. So it didn't. Sorry, no luck this time. All right. So who got points? Where are our winners? How many did you have? 4. Can we beat 4?
6.
6.
But I'm not gonna take it because I did cheat. I didn't cheat the first time when I got it. But I remembered that the Northern Lights got a lot of points.
Anybody else have points?
That's million.
Because you didn't have enough candy from Halloween. Now you got more. Donate yours. You didn't have to donate yours. Yeah, right.
President, come on. How much stuff is in my house?
I know, you can donate, but that's what I always say to my students. I'm like, would you like candy? And they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, but you have the gift of giving it to somebody else. And that's a beautiful thing too.
Giving it to my kids.
Okay, so, all right, so that hopefully was a little bit fun, whatever, but why? Why, besides the fact, well, keep in mind that when you go to Google, right, you're basically blindly putting something in, and it's creating what it thinks in its algorithm what it should be. What's different about generative AI, and what kind of scares us all, is that Google retrieves existing information from a vast industry of knowledge and content. It indexes web pages, and then it will retrieve them and tell you, here's what I think you want. With generative AI, as Josh already mentioned, it creates brand new content that it cannot be determined that wasn't created by a human being because it mimics and acts just like a human being. It uses machine learning that is so smart that, again, it appears as though we created ourselves, and it's original. So even though I can tell it what to do, the way in which it synthesizes and puts it together is all brand new. So a really interesting way to think about this is to say that Google, just like we just did, we were talking to a librarian. And we were saying, okay, Google, go find me books in this vast library that is the internet. So it's like talking to a librarian. When you start to use generative AI, things such as ChatGPT or Gemini or other tools, it's like talking to a creative writer. So they take what is learned and they write a brand new story. They put it sort of all together. So what does this mean for us? What does this mean for teachers, administrators, for you, for our students, for our parents, for our community? It basically means this. You guys see that? So it basically means that 5,000 years of accumulated human knowledge and know-how is being blown up because ChatGPT can essentially do what it is that we've done. But here's the good news. If you are love an analogy, and I'm an English teacher in heart, so I do love it. You'll notice that that building is burning right now. However, you'll also notice that there are people who have come to the rescue, right? There are firefighters there, there are people, there's a big hose, there's tools, there is know-how that we can do to sort of get the fire under control, rebuild the structure, and get it to something that is new and exciting and usable. And that's where we are.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
I really love the analogy of thinking about Becky's PD session 20 years ago and sitting there and having someone show them Google and go, wait a minute, we're not teaching kids to recall knowledge anymore. Now we're doing more application and creative processes. And now, what do we do now that application and creative processes can be mimicked by this machine learning, right? So we have a steering committee currently that has met several times to kind of talk about some of these ideas, help craft this vision, think about next steps, and sort of go, where can we take this so that we aren't sort of head in the sand for what students are not only doing now, but also where their future careers potentially are there for them. So the steering committee currently has several members from PW. We've got Dr. Picani, Mr. Price, Becky Duffy, and Maggie Coyle, who is a teacher in the Social
Studies Department.
At CMS, we have Dr. Kaplan, myself, and Brooke Carpenter, our library media specialist. And then in the district office, we have support from all the curriculum supervisors, from Dr. Gratis?
Yeah.
Sorry, Rosemary Gratis, and Joe, as well as Maria. So we've met 3 times now, I would say, 3 times to kind of talk about some of these things and where we're going. I want to quickly lay out like our beliefs, like where this is coming from, because I think at this point, it's important to know, like, okay, foundationally, where are we before we move forward with any of this? And I think the first thing is that every single person on this committee in this district believes that all students deserve a quality education, and not only that, but access to it. And it's really important that before we dive into any technology or any resources or any new ventures, that it's important that we are able to name our why and name what matters before we do that. So here's kind of what we believe about AI and how we can use it. Number one, that it can 100% support student achievement by providing scaffolding, adaptations, and different things to help meet students' individual needs where they are as learners. We also believe that it can support equity by providing teacher assistance. Essentially, what I like to say about AI is it allows the AI to take care of things so I can spend more time in my classroom doing what matters with kids. And that's that FaceTime. That's that one-on-one. That's that small group instruction. And then students, this is the last thing. Student implementation of AI tools and skills is going to be the future. And I think the more we can accept that and understand that and figure out what to do with that, because that is scary, because it's so powerful, but it's also life-changing. So what can we do to better prepare them for the future that will exist, whether or not we kind of move forward with it? So our vision statement is kind of guiding us in that direction, sort of what we believe. And we've done a lot of work and workshopping on this, and you can imagine 12 cooks in a kitchen on one meal and how many things people are looking at. Well, let's move, this word or this phrase. But what we did is we looked at our district mission and vision statement. We looked at our profile and portrait of a graduate. We talked about what we believe as a district and sort of crafted this as clearly as possible so that when we go to roll this out potentially for teachers in the district to understand what we believe for community members, that they know that this is where we're at. And so I think just to kind of read through it here is we are dedicated, okay, to responsibly integrating AI, artificial intelligence, into education to complement human intelligence so that we can prepare students to be ethical and skilled AI users. We're aiming to develop these adaptable, lifelong learners who are ready for this digital world, which is more digital than it was 10 years ago when I first came into this district. And so AI is going to advance, and it is rapidly changing. Now it's creating podcasts from text, and now it's allowing us to do so many different things that we plan to adapt our practices to reflect those developments. So that way we can align with district values and sort of changes as it changes. We're emphasizing ethical AI use to support students' growth and promoting critical thinking and problem solving. And so that flexible practice is going to guide us in creating that safe learning environment so students feel like they are being instructed on how potentially to use it, and we have that on the back end so we can enhance that human potential. And that's a lot. It really is. And the policy is really, really well written. I know Rosemary will put that in front of you, but it really does safeguard some of the things that I think we're probably all kind of concerned about to some degree too. So, Becky and the continuum.
So one of the things you may be thinking is, okay, so now we have the beliefs, we have like the vision. What does this actually look like from a day-to-day, from a teacher to a student to a parent and a community? So we developed this continuum, and essentially the idea behind this continuum is not to just live in what it looks like today, but really have a vision of what this could look like 3 to 5 years from now and what the future holds for us. So level 1 on the continuum is this idea that teachers use AI to support their development of lesson plans, rubrics, etc., ideas. There's a star next to this because in our work that we've been doing with teachers, just more informally, most teachers are here on this continuum, at least in the Colonial School District, certainly at PW. So they're living in this place. But that is just the very beginning of what this could look like. So a level 2 would be how teachers then start to use AI to differentiate. Hey, ChatGPT, I have students that have X, Y, and Z. I would like some different ideas for how I can meet the needs of these students. Great. Here's another opportunity for a chatbot. I'm going to create a chatbot that's going to individually give students feedback on what they're doing and help them through their lesson or their activity. That's level 2. A level 3 is when the teacher actually uses AI as an integral part of lesson planning. So that might be, no longer is it going to be very feasible to say, go write an essay on the Great Gatsby and identify symbolism throughout, because that's just going to be very easy for them to put in ChatGPT. So now maybe what I do is I actually do that with the students, and I develop and I give them this essay, and then I say to them, now I want you with a partner to analyze this essay. I want you to evaluate it, and I can give them specific prompts. So now I'm realizing, okay, I can use this as a tool within my own classroom, and there's lots of examples. A level 4 is us actually teaching students how to use this, how to prompt engineer, how to create their own chatbots, how to use AI to make them better at studying, creating their own ideas, putting together information that they are interested and passionate about. 5 would be where students take autonomy to use AI in all sorts of different ways for their own learning. They start to internalize it. They start to think about, okay, well, I have a bio test coming up. I can use this form of AI to help me prepare because I can create a chatbot. It'll mimic my teacher. It'll tell me exactly the types of things that might come up on the test, or I can even extend my thinking and coming up with new ideas. And a 6 is where all of this is happening simultaneously. All 5 are happening. Teachers are using it. Students are using it. It is sort of the future. And that 6 is going to be here before we know it. We already see it in the business world. With my role in the International Baccalaureate, I work with educators all over the world, and I've talked to lots of different people about how this is looking in other countries, and it's moving very quickly, and it's very rapid. So this is sort of what it could and potentially will start to look like in the classroom. But right now, we are going slow and steady. As Josh said, we want to do this the right way. We want to have the why. We want to have our beliefs. We want to have our vision. And then we want to start to get into the tools, because a very scary thing is to start saying what we should do before why we should do it. And so whenever you're thinking about, especially in education, why first, then what do we need to know, and then what do we need to do? So we don't want to get caught up in the do before we have that other stuff in place.
Yeah, and I think like Becky said, thanks for that. It's a lot. I'm sure a lot of thoughts are going through your head right now in terms of like that. There's a lot of scary things, right, from your perspective that, oh boy, even thinking about that in actualization is kind of nerve-wracking to some degree. And so we just kind of wanted to just back up slowly and just say, these are some of the ways that teachers are currently kind of using it in that level 1. And I won't get into too much detail, but just to kind of go through the categories, because I'm sure you have questions and we should go through that. But in terms of level 1 with the AI in action, what I'm seeing in the middle school and in talking with Becky, where teachers in the district and teachers sort of everywhere are doing it, is we're trying to find ways to make our learning more personalized, more engaging. So again, we can spend time doing what matters. And so besides, personalizing learning by, creating adaptive learning paths and having the, chatbots do those certain things, we are able to use this generative AI to help enhance student engagement and also improve accessibility. We've been able to level text faster than ever. We've been able to provide differentiated prompts and project-based options at the click of a button. And I think it's allowed us to then, again, maximize the human potential that's in front of us, so we're not spending all this arduous time creating some of these resources. It's allowed us to enhance creativity and innovation. We've also been able to look at sort of some data-driven insights here. Just if if I feed a rubric and potentially where my students are without student names or any identifying markers, the AI will then give me insight on, the last 3 assignments I've given, or where a potential pathway would go for these advanced learners or some of my, learners who are approaching the standard. And also for professional development for teachers. I mean, I think there's ways, this is sort of catching on like wildfire. And I think one thing Dr. Kaplan and I have talked about is he's always surprised at who he's hearing about is using AI in the planning and instruction process, more so the planning, because it's almost people you wouldn't think about. And this doesn't feel for us as another initiative or something. It is something that's maximizing our time, and it is something that's helping us there. So we are kind of thinking about next steps here before anything else, and then we'll talk questions. Yeah?
Yeah, I was just curious, maybe Dr. Figueroa can help with this question too. Obviously with AI and the generative being based on human intelligence is not objective, it can be biased. So what are we doing to make sure that not only our teachers, as they're rolling out step 1, but when we get to step 4, empowering students, that we're also empowering them to look out for biases within said, knowledge, et cetera, and information?
Yeah, this is an incredible question. There's been publications that have come out that have mimicked that exact same thing, that are chatbots biased? Are they racist? There's some things that have come out that we've sort of taken a look at and taken a step back in. And I think the board policy, in going through it, safeguards a lot of, there is still a professional responsibility as an educator for any material that you have, create, whatever, that you are always, giving it, again, that human eye. But that is
teaching our students to look for
Exactly.
Correct.
That's why
in step 4.
In step 4, it's educating them and making sure that they are aware of the limitations for certain, just like we would with any other tool, and making sure that they understand that. But it's an incredible point, which is not to take anything. It's still a machine. It's still something that's developing, and so we have to treat it as such. But that's certainly something that we've considered, and there's a lot of those types of questions that we have to, not only just as a Colonial School District, but as educators in general, have to figure out, which is great.
Yeah.
That bias is practically, it sounds like you're well read on the topic, right? Practically impossible to detect at times, certainly by the human eye without cross-referencing it with some other AI.
It just depends on what it's drawing from, but yeah.
But what we just did with the exercise was exactly it.
Correct.
That was a bias
Correct.
that did not represent all Google users.
Nope.
That did not that did not represent our
Correct.
page. And that's so a really simplistic, straightforward way to say to the students, like,
Yep.
although they might relate to most of that.
Yeah. You felt like, hey, I didn't know what any of this stuff was.
They know the third C. They know the third C. But, I quickly pulled up my Chrome to put in the same prompt to see what my 10 would look like. And they're vastly different. And it's partially because, the algorithm tied to my profile is going to generate what it thinks is sort of where I'm leaning towards.
Well, and we did this on election day, and you can guess so many of the answers were about, voting, election, where do I vote, who do I vote for, like those types of questions. So again, to the point, it's really important that we have to educate the kids. We can't just say like, well, we can't use it because of course not. But I'm saying like that's part of that continuum, which we have to be thinking about now before we even jump into using it.
Sure.
So we want to be mindful, and that's a great point to bring up.
And there are programs and guardrails, I'm sorry, Chris, that we can use and resources that guard what data it's also drawing from.
Yes.
So that we can curate and select what we're using. So, the chatbot we create is only drawing from those things. Sorry.
That was really along my point too.
Yeah.
So who's doing the fact checking? Who's doing the discernment? Like that what is being created is true or, whatever.
Accurate. So there's a couple different ideas on that. One is, to Josh's point, there are like generative AI where you can actually feed it anything you want. So it's almost like in a box. It will not pull from anything unless you've given it. So there's a tool, Notebook LM, that Google put out, which is phenomenal. And basically it's like a digital notebook. So basically what you do is you take everything you have, like I'm thinking about doing this with IB, putting all my content about IB, and then you can ask it questions. And it will only pull from the documents or the data that you've provided it. But it'll do things like create a podcast for you, create frequently asked questions. It will do study guides for you, do all sorts of different things. So you have that option. But then you have something like ChatGPT or Gemini that's pulling from the entire internet. And it kind of goes back to the other point. We, just like Google, right? How do you know if Google's accurate? We've spent years teaching kids what good, safe websites look like, discerning. So it's technology, education, making sure that they are digital citizens and understanding that, everything that you read on the internet isn't true. everything that you get from ChatGPT might not also. So you have to really be important, but that's a great point. Again, lessons we have to develop and plans we have to create.
Can I ask a question too? I have a couple just real quick questions before you move into the next steps. I'm just curious, where, is it possible for students to serve on the steering committee?
Yes, we already have them.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. I
included.
was gonna say, they probably know more than a lot of us in the room here, so.
Clearly,
Yeah, so definitely would love to see that. And then, something that's coming up for me is around, what AI, and maybe this is part of the next steps and I'm just not seeing it yet, is what does this mean for, not just the teacher lens, but the employee lens, so the administrators in terms of observation and feedback. I know that there are tools, I've seen them, I've played around with them, tools that you can be used to support in the classroom. So we're supporting at the district level as well. So I'm seeing a lot for our kids and our staff, and I think that's amazing. And as a district, I'd really like us to consider that pathway or that lens of what this could look like for scheduling, for feedback, for rosters, for evals, for observation and feedback, for all of those things. So I don't know if you need to expand your committee a little bit more, but I would just invite you to think really strategically about that, because it's not just getting our kids and our staff where we want them to be and up to date with all this, but it's us, the folks around the table here. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I had never
Good point.
thought about that. So
Yeah,
that's
work
a good
really
point.
hard with Karen.
there's a lot out there in terms of observation and feedback in particular for administrators that could help save some time.
And we love
And
seeing
It's
effort.
great.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great.
And one of the things that they did mention, and in our action plan, we're saying 1 to 3 years there, but we know that that's going to expand. We actually talked about 1 to 5 years. But again, as Becky said, we need to know our why, we need to act on our why, and we need to expand this, and it's going to change very rapidly.
And at the same time, you're gonna be 3 steps ahead of the students.
Yeah.
So,
Good luck.
But that's why we did say
I know, I'm just
saying, like,
We're catching up.
Yeah, I say yes, and there's that also that trust that gets built when you're building something together with students.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yes, and with anything that we're offering our students in terms of curriculum that's online or not, and just that.
Yeah, inviting them to a seat at the table.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Yes.
Very yes.
Right? Are there any other?
Yeah, more to do.
We just have a little bit. Just a few more.
Okay, so next step.
Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there.
So I think right now, just sort of a rough kind of bit of next steps, which has been up here and you've probably read through it. But our plan is by the end of this month to kind of develop what this professional learning plan looks like, essentially on the education side for teachers and staff, but also to really create opportunities for teachers, administrators, and students to weigh in and think about where we're sort of taking this committee. We have resources and connections to other school districts who have been implementing this, who have, sort of usage scales of when students can and cannot use AI in different assignments. And we would love to see how some of those are working on the ground. And then we plan to sort of convene this cohort of participants from different departments from elementary, middle, and high school for teachers who are really invested in being sort of the on-the-ground folks in the buildings and go-to people to get not only the professional learning, but to do turnaround training and really bring this back. And then, we have a vision to hopefully implement some of the professional development time in February on making sure teachers have an understanding of where we are in terms of a district with the different visions we have for staff, students, administrators. Like what is sort of our vision here with AI and how can we start kind of getting that going? And then ongoing communication with department leaders, community members, families, workshops, stuff hosted on the website. We need to be very, very transparent about all of this, I think, too.
So any other questions?
I just have one. So, this is a fantastic, it seems like you guys put a tremendous amount of thought in. It's a bold and very ambitious sort of plan, and the rapid acceleration of application is really hard to grasp, right? And so the greatest risk here is not seizing the opportunity on behalf of the students. In terms of the teachers as adults, and it's going to augment everything that you do and make you have more time, allow you the time to spend. but if you spend any time thinking about AI or reading about AI, right, the expertise is still rapidly evolving, right? And so I'm just curious if there's anybody in terms of participants, timelines, actions, professional development of how often you seek outside counsel in terms of that expertise. And I'm sure it just can't be there just yet, right? What is AI, 12 months old? So what is the plan in terms of, you said 4 to 5 years? That's practically impossible to predict, right?
Yeah.
But you still have to attempt to figure out what the framework will be to get there in terms of staying up to speed. Any sort of plans in terms of engaging the outside world? Because as expert as you guys might get, right? You realize their expertise is like from here to.
Well, one of the things in our vision statement is that second paragraph is all dedicated to exactly that. First of all, the acknowledgement that we don't know what we don't know, number one, and number two, that we have to constantly be adapting and, seeking out those resources and seeking out that expertise. Because to your point, we have, and you can see every other district at this point is basically kind of in the same place we are, where we're trying to figure this out as we go. So in our vision, it was purposefully added in there so that we constantly have an opportunity to be adapting and seeking what best practices at this particular point. In terms of specific, we've had some conversations with Downingtown School District, with the Hicken School District. We've talked to some other districts that and colleagues in the area. And like I said, for me, I was just on a call the other day from a friend of mine who lives in China, and he was showing me a chatbot that they're using and how they're implementing it with their students. So it's really just this idea of trying our best to figure out what's out there and how to kind of make it work for us. So it's almost like the idea is to have a practice in place where every couple months we are making sure that we're seeking that type of thing, which we could certainly add to the action plan, because I think it would be a valuable tool to have.
Yeah, I mean, I know Penn has an incredible sort of AI lab that they're working through, and it just to have that professional physical that we can go to get that check on, here's what we're doing, what's your professional opinion on how that works?
So do you anticipate there being some sort of resource demand in order to sort of lessen the burden on you all, because you actually have day jobs? To sort of tap into that expertise, right? Because look, with all due respect, you're talking to other school districts. If they're not getting outside counsel, now again, you all know there's vendors that are trying to sell you everything, but a red tie. So, any thoughts into what you may need in terms of resources in order to make sure that the district is innovating and sort of leading on the cutting edge, rather than sort of following, given the importance of AI moving forward?
And we do have, and Dr. Picani was just pulling it up, so we gave you guys kind of like an overall picture of where we are. We obviously have much more detailed documents, a timeline here and a plan, visitations down to University of Penn. So besides the wonderful people standing in front of you, the other people on our steering committee. But the important thing is we do want these guys involved, because these guys are the ones that are
I'm sorry, don't.
And our students. No, I know what you meant. But it is important for us to have those that are teaching in our classrooms be directly involved, to have our students be directly involved, come on those site visits with us. And we're relying on those that are saying that they are more of the expert than we are at this point. So yes, we will be utilizing other resources, and we will have district funds to help us with that.
Yeah.
Mark's not here, right?
Yeah, I was Look, this would be akin to teaching without books after the printing press.
Yeah.
To some extent. Yeah. So I think it would be important to really have that longer term plan and always being on the edge of saying, like you said, every couple of months you're thinking, and that should include sort of any resource demand, because again, just help balance the burden on the staff.
And
they are going to be newer and newer and newer and faster. Yeah.
They put together a great resource of resources for us to explore, including, MCIUs have different opportunities for us, University of Pennsylvania, other webinars and things like that. So we are certainly looking into those, and we'll be jumping with, because I appreciate the point that you make, which is, having day jobs teaching, we're also trying to figure this out on the other end. And just a point about AI is going to work wonders for teachers, because it's going to allow us to simplify. Like a perfect example, the other day I wanted to find scenarios with my IB students. I wanted to show them specific scenarios on having courageous conversations, and I used to have to sit there and create them myself and think through the nuances and the things I want. I put in ChatGPT, it gave me 7 of them. I tweaked. It saved me about 2 hours in all seriousness. But now what we start thinking about is how are we changing our lesson plans to embrace this new tool? And that's going to take our energy. That's where our teacher energy is going to go to. So it's this idea of like, okay, my assessment for Unit 2 has always been write an essay on the Great Gatsby. That can't be anymore. And what is it now? And Joe and I have had lots of conversations. The committee has had conversations. And the answer is, unfortunately, we don't quite know yet. And that's where we're at with this. And so to your point, if there are people out there that have their brains on this that we could sort of tap into, that would be really valuable.
Yeah. Is part of that research?
Sorry.
PlayLab AI.
PlayLab AI. Throwing that out there. Okay.
Yeah.
It's in our action plan.
Jason's got it open.
I was just wondering, as part of that resource, and also since we started this conversation earlier on talking about the AP courses and getting the kids, ready for college. Are we looking at how also we're getting them ready, looking at how the colleges are using this so that when they come through the door, they've got those critical thinking skills and how to utilize it, but they also kind of have a heads up on how Henry Temple's using it as well, and what's the expectations.
And that's all part of it as well. As a matter of fact, I've been with IB work and we're in the career related program. I have been talking to people in the field, in the industry. How are you using it? What are you doing with it to even prepare them even beyond? So certainly that's a consideration. But the idea is that on that continuum, it's going to look a lot like that 6, where it's an autonomous thing that students are taking ownership of. But in an educational setting, we need to be the guidance, and we need to make sure that they're doing it in a way that's ethical and practical, responsible, and things like that, so that when they go out into the world, correct.
Yeah. And I think colleges have been caught flat-footed in the same way that we all sort of were too, and they vary in terms of outright ban and back to blue books and handwriting versus some classes in college are now requiring students to use AI to create things. So I think it just depends, but at that level, I feel like students have an investment both financially and personally, and here in the public K-12 space, we really want to safeguard and make sure that things like privacy and things like helping them develop when they are developing the most is really, again, safeguarded, because we just want to make sure it's protected, but also preparing them for what the future looks like. So it's a lot.
It's a lot, but everybody just take a deep breath. We're going to get through it.
I guess.
Put out the fire. We got this.
That Josh just mentioned is a perfect segue into, without the policies to guide our practices, we can't do anything. So we do have 2 policies that we are asking the board to consider this evening. One is a policy update, policy 815, which we already have in the district, acceptable use of internet, computers, and network. And then the other would be a policy addition, which would be the use of generative AI in education.
Did you use AI to generate the
We did not. We got them for PSBA. So PSBA is the one who is giving us this language. And Drew is going to explain the policies to us.
The acceptable use policy was last approved in 2020. So we are taking the recommendation from PSBA to add these changes. The proposed changes and additions that are in bold ensure that the district's acceptable use policy stays current with evolving technology, legal standards, and best practices for digital safety and security. Some of the focus points are on digital security, clear notification, legal compliance, increased emphasis on digital citizenship, broadening the scope for inappropriate content, minimizing exposure, and the main change in the policy is the website's accessibility for individuals with disabilities. And you'll see that on the last page in all bold. Some of the key focus areas that changed is they did add hate speech to our list of suspicious or inappropriate content. They also added weapons to that, and procedurally they added the building principal to the list for when there's misuse. It would go through the building principal, who then would consult the superintendent and or his designee. So a lot, when you went through, you'll see a lot of words changing. Just changing words, adding network, adding resources, but no major change except for that acceptable website changes that were made. And just to inform the board, The PR office has a software running on the internet that keeps us in compliance. So when we make changes, it notifies you if you're not in compliance.
What would the goal be to vote on this? Is that next week or?
It would be a first reading at the board meeting.
And then the goal there would be in January to have our second read and the adoption, so that we could, in February, have some professional development. That was the acceptable use policy, or was that Drew?
That was acceptable use. The next one is the use of generative artificial intelligence in education. I don't think I need to read this after what you just saw, but I will. The use of generative artificial intelligence educational policy aims to guide the district's adoption of the integration of generative AI tools while ensuring responsible, ethical, and legal use. The policy recognized the potential of generative AI to enhance teaching, streamlining operations, and preparing students for the future that demands digital literacy and critical thinking skills. The main points of the policy focus on responsible use, AI literacy, ethical considerations, academic integrity, evaluation and monitoring, consequences, and misuse. The school board is approving this policy because generative AI has the potential to significantly enhance educational practices, allowing for innovative learning methods, personalized education, and improve operations and efficiencies. At the same time, the policy ensures that these tools are used ethically, safely, and responsibly, safeguarding student privacy and upholding academic standards. By providing clear guidelines, professional development, and ongoing monitoring, the district can integrate AI into education while maintaining a commitment to equity, integrity, and security. This policy prepares both students and staff for a future where digital literacy and ethical use of technology are essential. In case you didn't read the policy. And this is a new policy. So, again, recommended by PSBA.
It seems like it's going to be a policy that we're going to constantly be updating.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think you're right. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yes. All right, the final thing on our agenda are two conference requests. One conference request that you see here is taking place in about a week or two, but we did miss it for CCOB. So this is a counselor fly-in with Beth Lynch. We did tell her that you would approve this, so hopefully you will. But she has her plans and she is ready to go to Beacon College. She did attend this last year and it went very well.
This was a college, I believe, that focuses on students who have learning differences.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, where's it located?
Leesburg, Florida. Yeah.
Nice. Sounds good.
All right, so you'll see that next week as well. And then the other one is Dr. Madel. Dr. Madel is, when I find it, there it is. Sorry. Dr. Madel is going to the Northeast Conference on the teaching of foreign languages. I believe he is presenting again. This conference is taking place in New York and at the end of February. And Jason's conference fund is paying for both of these, so we're very appreciative of that. Yeah. So you'll have both of these next week for approval. Any final questions?
No, but that presentation on AI was amazing. Very informative.
Great job.
Very engaging too. Thank you.
Yes, we need to give a big thank you to Josh and Becky. The entire steering committee is fantastic. They are without a doubt the leaders in our steering committee, so we appreciate every work that they have done. All right.
Appreciate the opportunity. All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Is there any public comments? Okay, seeing none. Any other board comments? We're all good? All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Sorry.
Oh, nobody wants to be friends with Dr. Christian. Oh.
I'm here.
Christian is sitting at the lunchroom table all by himself.
I don't know,
You
but
know,
I'm breaking into the
The other
candy.
day, I ran into somebody that I went to nursery school with, and they said that they remembered me when I was 5 years old, that I got sent to the thinking chair very often. I feel like I'm back in the thinking chair. I'm like, oh, I remember you.
Is that what the
They go,
smart
I
kids
remember
say?
you too. You every once a week, you're in the thinking chair.
That is awesome. That's hilarious.
Is that a reward or a
It's just
punishment?
one page, right? Okay.
Apparently, I thought
figured
it
out
was a
too.
reward. But in reality, I don't think it was.
Okay, well, we need you to go back to the chair and review that.
Okay, so, good evening and welcome to the CRSL meeting for November 11th. Do we have any public comment?
Currently none at this time.
Having none, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Burke.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This evening, we have 4 items to review. The first one, Dr. Figueroa Douglas will enlighten us with EIB updates. We will review the 25-26 school calendar. I want to give you a very brief update on our middle and high school mental health staffing. And then we have a policy to review. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to you. And I just lied. Turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Mrs. Burke, and good evening to the members of the board, our staff at Colonial School District, and community. On September 29, 2024, more than 30 students and PW administrative team, along with counselors and teachers, supported an HBCU college fair in Wilmington, Delaware. Dr. Melissa Figueroa Douglas and Counselor Mrs. Beth Lynch plan on visiting the Atlanta metropolitan area to visit and do a fly-in at the HBCUs in that area. The PWEIB student leaders participated in the Dreaming Forward initiative through the MCIU. This initiative builds on efforts to promote a sense of belonging across the county and offers students the opportunity to collaborate with peers across the county and further foster a positive sense of belonging and make impactful decisions while honing leadership skills. We attended the first meeting on October 8th, and these meetings will be ongoing throughout the school year. Students at CMS participated in the Middle School Leadership Summit with the University of Pennsylvania. This event was held in downtown Pennsylvania, also October 8, 2024, which offered our students the opportunity to collaborate with peers in the tri-state area. Dr. Melissa Figueroa Douglas meets regularly with students from CMS and PW. The students have been well engaged in working on fostering a stronger sense of belonging between peers to address the data from the PSSM survey. Dr. Sean Kaplan and Mrs. Carol Ann Crum, had more than 35 students participate in our last EIB student leadership meeting. Dr. Figueroa Douglas and Assistant Principal, Mr. Stephen Price, have been working really closely and collaboratively with the counselors at PW. Currently, proud to announce that we have more than 15 students in our teacher pipeline through PRIZE with Westchester University. PRIZE stands for Partnering in Raising Inclusive, Zealous Educators. And finally, at our last EIB committee meeting, a video was created by Jessica Lester, thank you so much, featuring our multilingual students, and it was premiered. Our students shared in their native language a welcome to Colonial message, which encapsulates and supports the mission of the Colonial School District for students to learn, grow, and serve in a community that is welcoming for all. And that is my update. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Melissa?
No, but the video is awesome.
Mhm.
Jessica.
Thank you.
It's really nice.
Is it on the website?
Pardon me?
Is it on the website?
It is on our YouTube channel, but
Okay.
we can certainly turn it into like a website story. Our idea was to kind of chop it up too into different pieces and kind of throw up different languages over time on social media and everything, just to kind of educate the community about how many different languages are spoken, because it was certainly a learning experience for me to see how many students there were.
That's awesome.
And how many different types of languages were spoken, so it's really neat.
The prize initiative to the students, if they complete it, do they get 6 credits, Westchester?
So if they start their junior year, they can earn up to 7 credits before starting at Westchester University.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Nice.
And the district is covering that cost, and it's really a nominal fee per student. Our goal was to get, our lofty goal was to get 10. I think we had, the first year we had 3 or 4, and then we jumped up to 7 or 8, and now we're up to 15, which is fantastic.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Our counselors at PW are working really hard, in tandem with Westchester University. So it's really great to see this initiative take off.
Yeah, I saw Caitlin Parenti speaking to a student about it recently. She's our newest counselor who came out of this, she was in a charter school, and she's really melded well with the rest of the team over there.
Yes, she has.
Nice.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Next on the agenda is the 25-26 calendar.
Wait, Rick's not here. We can't throw him under the bus.
What's that?
I said, Rick's not here. We can't throw him under the bus.
We like to do that, don't we?
There's a copy and administrative content. There's hard copies around the table. Board asked, mentioned at the end of the meeting last week to discuss it this week. So in front of you, you have the adjusted calendar. The board has approved the first day of school, and we've already publicized that, August 25th. The last day of school, pending snow or no snow, is June 12th. Please note that the Pennsylvania law that used to require 180 days and 990 hours, there's a little or in there with that now. So it's still our goal to have 180 and 990 because that's the tradition. But if you're at 179 days and you have over 990 hours of instruction, you don't get fined. So there used to be, for years, districts would get fined, mostly for kindergarten and seniors, because seniors just go a few fewer days because graduation's usually a couple days early, and kindergarten sometimes starts a little bit later. That kindergarten's also only 900 hours if you're full-time, 450 if you're half-time, and we're obviously full-time. So you see where the breaks are, you see where the holidays are. I think this is the best version. Per the collective bargaining agreement, and it's been in there for decades, I believe, CEA gets 60 days to review the calendar, and they have a copy of it now, so we're about halfway through that time right now, so they should get back to me shortly. They often get back before 60 days. We can publish this as a draft to the community, pending board approval in January. I don't think I'm gonna get it back from CEA until by next Thursday, so happy to take any suggestions if you'd like to look at dates. The only thing we don't have in there is there's also contractual time for the PLT days, but we put that in afterwards.
Just a question, what's November 4th, the significance of the 4th for teacher in service? Is that?
That's just traditionally, it's an election day, and we've been asked to use our buildings as polling places. We didn't this year, so we're hopeful that we won't anymore, but it's generally a county-wide in-service day.
And then
Where we talk about AI and other things.
So it's a long winter break, but the December 23rd, is that traditionally a half day?
So by contract, there are 3 half days that have to be, they're not the PLT days. This is also in the collective bargaining agreement, at least dating back to 2006, I think. There's 3 half days. One must be before the Thanksgiving break. One must be before Memorial Day. And the third one is at the choice of the administration and the board. And really that leaves either the day before winter break or the day before spring break. And that's in the CEA agreement. So that's where we have some latitude on one of them, but the other 2 are etched in stone.
Question, the last day of school, is that traditionally a half day?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have to, for PLTs, we have to have one that month, so it's traditionally the last day.
Okay.
And even before the PLT agreement, and two CBAs ago, it was always, actually, if you look back at old calendars, there were half days, like the last 3 or 4 days.
Can we check this year's calendar, this school year's, to make sure? I didn't look, but somebody in the community asked me if it was a half day, and I forgot to look until it just jogged my memory to make sure we have it listed as a half day, the last day of school.
We'll double check. It might not be, but we can rectify
Yeah.
that. I've been asked to have more than one half day at the last day of school.
I think just one is.
I have not acquiesced as of yet. Things have changed with, and I get it. It's mid-June, people are ready for the break. It's the traditional school calendar. However, from a curriculum standpoint, things have changed. It's also with our students who receive special education services. When we get through the PASA and we get through the PSSA, we start the content for the next year, getting ready for the next, and it's not all PSSA driven, but it really is. Part of it is. Same with AP exams, same with everything. You know, those AP teachers are already contacting their kids for the next year. Chris, you know this. They were already, when they were signed up for the course, they're already hearing from those teachers by the end of May, early June. It's time to gear up for next year because the AP exams are in May. So, I get the traditional calendar that we follow, but the reality is, from a content perspective, we really need to get those days in May and June so we can start building the base for the following year.
So we're having, obviously we had this conversation last month. So for the next year calendar cycle, we had talked before about moving up our discussion so that parents could have more time to adjust or whatever. Do we need to change when we bring up the calendar again?
The only timeline you have committed to is your agreement with CEA to give them 60 days so we can publish calendars as far in advance as you like. You just have to wait. You have a 2-month waiting period. And they generally, do a little survey. And it's really probably, when they survey, it's really to talk probably about 4 or 5 days in their placement, like looking at where the breaks are and those types of things. That would be my assumption. As soon as, after next year, Labor Day moves very late. So it's like the 7th and the 6th. So the reality is, I think we'll be starting before Labor Day for the next 3, 4, 5 years, without a doubt, if not forever. And then if there's any discussion on modifying any of the holidays or any of the breaks, I would advise the board to start those discussions next spring or summer for the following year.
And then one last question. When we have the first day of school, can we also add CMTHS to that too? Like that when they're, like right now we're on the same first day.
Technical high school?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then when they, their graduation, and because they finish early,
Yeah.
like by May 30th or something, they're finished.
They're
Can we
usually
just note that
early.
somewhere on here for parents?
On the one page or on the website calendar?
Oh,
Okay.
We can do that. Yeah, their graduation's usually right after Memorial Day.
mhm.
I think
Because they have kids that do internships too, their junior and senior year, especially their seniors, so they're out doing more work with their internships.
I think just real quick back to Beth's point around like the half days and first the last day of school is a half day. As I'm looking at this, like it wouldn't be obvious to me that the June 12th is a half day.
We haven't put it in yet.
But and you said the 3 half days. I see the one that's by right before winter break, and then where was the other?
So the other 2 are interesting, they're in orange on the calendar, so we're
Okay.
required to do one.
They're okay.
So that is a great question, and that is a combination of the requirement to do a half day and the requirement to do PLT.
Okay.
So we moved PLT to the morning those days, so the
Okay.
teachers are in for a half day. And then it actually worked out, and I think our families really appreciated having that Wednesday, especially for those who are traveling for the holiday. Because if you look at our previous year's attendance rates on that Wednesday half day, lower than traditional days. And then we did the same thing in May.
Got it.
And then that way we don't have a second early dismissal in those months, which really would impact our families, particularly our families who have parents and guardians who are working hourly jobs.
Got it. Thank you.
Small typo in December, just missing 30 instead of there's 2 31s.
That's a ground.
Zero the year in December.
Thank you.
Round
New Year's Eve, that's good.
Right.
Party never ends. I think one thing, and not necessarily for this calendar, but we've talked about is possibly potentially having to adjust spring break down the line, depending on how holidays that we're being more intentional and inclusive around where they fall. But that doesn't seem to be the case for this year. This seems like it fits in pretty nicely.
I would agree for next year's, it's not the case.
Yeah.
If the board wants to have that conversation, I would suggest having it early and communicating it widely.
So like in the spring, having it early, like in the spring?
Yes.
Okay.
For the follow, for the spring
26.
27th.
Right, right.
And even then, if it's changed, someone will say, we didn't talk about it.
Right.
But we'll do our best.
Well, I just wonder, like, if we're being proactive, we're trying to be proactive. I think what we're trying to get at is be as proactive as we can. So I don't know if it's possible, like, when do you usually do a draft of that year? And is it possible to, like, even do that a little bit before so we could start to have that conversation about what it looks like? Like, it's one thing to say, oh, all right, we're not going to take spring break, or we're going to do this or do that. But we need to see, like, where it all falls.
Sure. Yeah, we can put it together whenever you need it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Do you want to talk about kindergarten?
Oh,
Yeah, we're starting kindergarten earlier next year.
Exactly, that's all. It's an
They
exciting
usually
thing.
come
Talk
in a
about
few
that.
days later, but we're doing a little bit. Rosemary went around, met with all the teachers, and it's changed, so there's some adapting, but it's been.
We've been talking about it for years.
Yeah, it's generally been a week later, and we just want to
Yeah.
get the kids in sooner.
It's been a struggle for our families to just have half days or an alternating schedule. And we were the last school district in the county. So we will be having orientation on that 25th for all of our families.
do you know
Does that make you happy?
going to have a kindergartner?
And then the 26th, 27th, and 28th will be full days for our kindergarten teachers.
Kid's gotta go.
What's that?
He's gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. There's no only half day to that. Yeah.
It is changed, and we love our kindergarten teachers.
Yeah.
Every high school teacher, I said this last week to a couple of board members, and I was a high school teacher, so I can say this, every high school teacher should spend 1 week teaching kindergarten.
Yes.
And
Just
they
means
would
they're a little-
appreciate
Not that much
Straight
because they all quit.
Yeah, they would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I can walk into any kindergarten class and be amazed on a daily basis.
The Crowitz triplets screamed the entire time that first time they were in the class. They were in 3 different classes, and there were only 2 parents, and the parents kept switching off which class they went to because they had never,
Yeah.
it was just, it was just a shame. They're well adjusted now.
Yeah.
Next item, when we started, did you have something? Oh, I'm sorry. When we started the year, we were hoping to have all of our staffing completed at the middle and high schools for our resolve rooms. This year we added the resolve room at the high school. And we did have it fully staffed at the end of last year. However, there were people who found other jobs that were closer to their homes. And we found ourselves at the beginning of the school year with nobody to staff either the middle or senior high school. Fortunately, we have a very, very good working relationship with Lakeside Network. And they worked feverishly during the summer and in the fall to find qualified people to interview. And I'm very thrilled to announce that we are completely staffed now. We have a new individual who just started the end of October here at the middle school, and she has already hit the track running and is already integrating into our middle school family, and we are thrilled. The feedback that we're getting thus far has been wonderful. Kids have already found her and are coming to see her, and staff has already found her, so we're very happy. The same has applied to our counselor at the senior high as well. So I am thrilled. The third mental health worker that we have is our mental health worker who provides counseling services for our students with IEPs. And we did staff that as well. She was able to start at the beginning of the school year, and she's already booked. So I am a very happy camper, I have to say. So our numbers obviously are growing with mental health needs, but I think like anything else, build it and they will come. So people who may not have sought assistance are seeking assistance, and our goal is always to have kids be self-advocates and recognize when they have issues. And I think some of our programming that we're doing with monies through SAP Council in providing, signs of suicide, providing drug and alcohol information, and it has really paid off, and that kids are starting to recognize. We have gotten, safe to say, referrals from students about friends, which makes me, I'm sorry that that's happening, but I'm thrilled that we have kids who are looking out for one another. So I'm hoping that we can keep these programs running. Right now they are being funded through grants, and we will continue to seek grant money for that. But it's really been a very valuable tool for us, for our kids and for our families. So I thank the board for the support with that. Any questions about?
Just the third counselor that's works with kids with IEPs, are they in both buildings or one?
Yeah.
Both? Okay.
Yeah, they're split.
Gotcha.
And again, if we see the need increase, then, I may be coming. But we have applied for grant monies to fund that.
And the teachers are aware that the IEP counselor exists, and then okay.
Yep, great. Yeah, everybody's aware, and we're getting referrals. So there's active referrals at our child study team meetings, at our IEP team meetings. So I'm very happy and grateful. Any questions about that? The last thing on the agenda is a policy review. This is a new policy. And basically what it is, it's called Student Rights and Responsibilities, Policy 235. This basically is setting forth guidelines by which student rights and responsibilities are determined. It's basically a code of conduct for students, and it's something that I think we've always thought students knew, and there's certainly things in handbooks. But I think this creates a policy which adds a little muscle to it, not only for our students, but I think also for families who oftentimes will ask, well, is there a policy that says that? And now we can say, yes, there is. As a matter of fact, happy you brought that up. So there's, I go through this, and we can bring it to the board for a first read, but basically talking about appropriate behavior, or I should say expected behavior in the classroom, at school events, appropriate attire, appropriate language or expected language, again, at not only in our classrooms, in our hallways, but also at our various events or school-sponsored events, which I think sometimes, not everybody comes to us with the tools in their toolbox, and this kind of lays it out there for everybody. Are there any questions about that? And I'm going to turn this back to you.
Is there any board questions or comments on anything? Any public comment?
Currently not at this time.
Meeting is adjourned.
Just one thing for the board, if the board's okay with it, we wanted to have the marching band who won their title this past weekend. We invited them next Thursday, next Thursday. The director couldn't make it, he already had travel plans in place, so I would rather not wait until January. We okay doing something at reorg, since we're not inducting any new board members? We can do that before reorg, and then, so I think there's another group we want to.
Rihanna Brunerot wasn't unable to come, or that coach was not unable to come
Oh, yeah.
as well.
Was she recently do something?
She won the district title in golf, and she
Again,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
repeat, and then one stroke shy of repeating as the state champion.
Oh.
So, Frank Columbia University of Delaware to play.
Correct.
Do they have a good
Oh,
golf
is
program?
she? I was wondering.
I wouldn't know anything about anything with golf. So.
I've seen her play. If they're not already good, they're about to get better.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I just didn't want to wait till the end of
I remember
January.
her like younger brother looked very proud last year, which I found very good.
And the football team, score didn't indicate it. We were down 7-0 with 3 minutes to play before the half up at CD South, who were 10-0. And they did a fake punt that went 50 yards, and we all were fooled by it. And then we just got a little, they outlasted us, and does not diminish the effort of the team. And Dan Chang was invited. I don't know if you know this, he got his 100th win. Of course, he said nothing. It was all the kids recognized him. If he was walk on that field, that team could go 2-8, 0-10, 10-0, and the kids feel like they're part of the program, which means, to me, that's the sign of a good program. And so he was invited to be a guest coach at some high school All-American game somewhere in Texas or something like that. So, yeah, Dan's really, he's in rare air for sure. But like, win or lose, regardless, like every one of those kids would love being part of that program. He cares about the kids who play the most snaps as much as the kids who only get in a little bit. And he's a resident and parent.
So what?
He's a resident and parent in the district. He's all in.
Did we adjourn? Yeah. Oh, no, we adjourned. Oh, yeah.